Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's episode of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel and hanging out with me a little bit. And guys, today I want to have a detailed discussion about the truth behind professional bass fishing that nobody tells you, that people try to hide, that the industry tries to hide. And as somebody that has been a professional fisherman since 1986 and has a ton of buddies that are professional fishermen, I'm going to give everybody a reality check of what's going on here. We've talked about stuff like this before, but I'm going to dive deep into this today. And I think the public needs to know about it. It's like there's a lot of people that have interest in it. And even if some people are casual observers, you guys might find this interesting. It's sort of a interesting study in human nature and how the sort of the unseen part of the industry works a little bit. So we're going to get into that in today's episode. Also, guys, for get started, a quick invitation. I'd just like to invite everybody to please consider hitting that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Free and easy to do that, man. If you just subscribe to the channel, hit the like button and share the videos. That's a good way to help Intuitive Angling. And there's also a bunch of other ways. If you guys want to even go to the next step, we got memberships. We got all the links I have in my channel descriptions you guys can use to help the channel out. And thanks everybody. Big thank you from me and my family for everybody that's been doing that. We really appreciate that. Okay, there is a lot of misconceptions and a lot of intentional muddying of the water and a lot of intentional attempts to hide the reality of what professional fishing is because some people have a vested interest in promoting professional fishing. I get it. You know, it's a business. Tournament organizations have a vested interest. There's some entities within the fishing industry that have a vested interest. And in the meantime, it's the individuals and the tournament anglers that are affected by these particular agendas or initiatives they have. So let's talk about the reality that a lot of people do not understand about this sport. And this is going to go into a lot of different detail with it. First of all, we are in a time that it has rapidly changed. It's not even, it's not even on the same universe as it was when I started out. And again, I've talked about this part of it some, but I want to intro it getting into this. It's like the reality of being a professional fisherman prior to about probably 5, maybe 10 years ago in this particular sport is it was achievable to most everybody if you wanted it because the costs were a lot cheaper. It's like the entry fees were a fraction of the cost. You know, equipment was a fraction of the cost. It was just a lot more affordable to the average person. I mean, in my situation, guys, when I got started out, I was working a part-time job, bussing tables, mowing lawns, washing cars, and I saved up money for 3 years. It took me 3 years to save up $5,000, and the entry fees the first year on my Bassmaster Invitational I fished were $3,600, and I was fortunate to make the money in 6 out of the 7 tournaments we fished. So that kept me going throughout the course of the year. And I was still living at home. I was living, with my mom and dad. I was in my early 20s. I didn't have any expenses. And I still barely scraped by. Even though I didn't have any expenses, I had my entry fees paid. And that's how I got started in it. You can't do that anymore because what the entry fees being $3,600 40 years ago are now upwards of $30,000 to $50,000 for entry fees alone, and then the cost of your boats and motors and trucks and everything have probably at least quadrupled, maybe even more, probably quadrupled in price. And the thing about it is the tournament payouts in relationship to those expenses have not really increased that much. In fact, they've went down. It's like the highest, the period in pro fishing where the payouts were the highest was the late 90s to the early 2000s. From about 1998 to say 2003, 2004, that's when the payouts were the biggest and the entry fees were, half as what they are now. So basically you're competing for a fraction of the cost. And here's the bottom line with it, guys. The Bassmaster Elite Series circuit and the BP, the Bass Pro Tour are basically just big jackpot tournaments. To glorified jackpot tournaments in relationship to the true sponsorships that we had, in the sport 25, 30 years ago. And a lot of this, I think, is the fact that companies and industries have seen to a large degree that it simply does not give them a return on their investment. Some companies benefit more than others, but overall, there's a lot of companies out there, for the money that they were putting into it, they simply did not see the return on the investment, primarily from the ability of the tournament organization side to create that return on the investment. The anglers themselves actually they have a lot better ability to bring value to a sponsor than a tournament organization does. So that's one of the things we've been changed with it. The next thing, as far as the truth of being a pro fisherman, guys, is the fact that the best anglers are not pro fishermen in this country. I can tell you that for sure, without a doubt. And that's one of the big differences between professional bass fishing and other professional sports, is the cream usually always rises to the top in baseball, football, basketball, tennis, all that type of stuff. Talent is undeniable. The problem with pro fishing is you have to have a smaller level of talent, but you have to have everything else in line. You have to have your finances in line, because it's pay to play, number one. You have to have all of your logistics at home set up. You got to, if you have a family or whatever, that's a variable. You're going to be gone constantly. And there's a lot of things that you have to do logistically to be a professional fisherman. Let's take, for example, that you figure out how to pay your way. You got your entry fees paid up. You got your truck and your boat. You got your tackle. You got this big chunk of the problem out of the way. Let's just assume that you do that, which is a hard one to do. The next thing you have to do, and this is why the best people are not pro fishermen, there's an illusion that they are, but they're not. The next problem you have with that is your home logistics. You've got a mortgage to pay at home. You got food to pay. You've got insurance payments. You may have a family to take care of. You have all that type of stuff on the side beyond your tournament expenses, and then you're freaking gone all the time. So let's say, for example, you're married and you got 2 kids, something like that. As a professional angler, in order to compete, you have got to pre-practice. You got to practice, and you got to be there fishing the tournaments, and you got to put 98% of your mental energy into fishing. Therefore, it is an extremely selfish sport. Professional bass fishing is a selfish sport to the people that do it, and the people around them suffer. Families suffer. Your friendships suffer. Anything back home suffers. I have earned the right to say that because I've been there and done that. I know what it's like. That is a reality of the situation, regardless if anyone wants to admit it or not. So therefore, here's what you have. You've got to be able to come up with this unbelievable financial commitment right off the bat. You've got to be able to pay for all your home stuff on top of that financial commitment. You've got to be able to have a situation where your family is okay with you being gone as much as somebody in the military on a deployment. And then you go to the tournaments. There are more people than not that are better anglers than the people that are willing to do that, but they choose not to. I can name, guys, a half a dozen anglers here in Missouri that I grew up fishing around, fish regional circuits and all that type of stuff. They would be superstars in the sport, but they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to be away from their family for 200 days a year. They didn't want to put their family in this financial, the stress that is caused by tournament fishing. They didn't want to divide their attention, because instead of like putting 99% of your energy into your fishing, which you have to be successful, they want to they want to go to their kids' football games. They want to go to their kids' soccer games. They want to spend time with their wife. Therefore, they choose not to fish. They'll fish weekend buddy tournaments or something, and they are freaking hammers, and they are better than anybody that you think is the top guys on the circuits right now. I know that. I've been around all of them. I've competed against them. I've competed against them on the top levels and on the local levels. I've fished with them personally. That's why tournament fishing, professional tournament fishing, is sort of a joke in that essence, is that you do not have the best anglers competing in the sports. You have the people out there that are willing to do exactly what I talk about, put their family's future in jeopardy, be away from their family. They've got the ability to afford it financially, and then the true talented anglers. And I'm not saying there's not talented anglers that are doing it, but I'm saying it's not on the same level as other sports. And that's why, in my opinion, professional bass fishing will never be a true legitimate sport in the public's eye, is because it's a pay-to-play sport and the best people are not competing against it. This is the biggest illusion out there that the tournament organizations and some of the entities try to prop up, that these dudes are the best in the world. If they were the best in the world, guys, they wouldn't have to have a damn cheater box to show them where the fish are at. You know, you hear guys, I've heard some guys saying out there, it's like, well, I can't catch them if I can't see them on my cheater box. If that's not the most pathetic statement I've ever heard in my life, then you probably aren't paying attention to what fishing actually is. So from that standpoint, it's really messed up in essence. And then another thing with it, it's like there is a tremendous amount of stress as a professional angler that people don't talk about financially to keep it going, more than others. Now, let's say, for example, out of all the top pro anglers right now, let's say that half the dudes out there have financial safety nets, and it's getting to be more and more. Back when I was fishing, guys, you had maybe 5% of the guys had a financial safety net. Now there's way over 50, maybe 75 or 80% of the guys out there. They've got family money, they've got their own business, they've got some type of a financial safety net where the money is not an issue to them. So that, you can't ever underestimate what a massive advantage that is. Because let's say, for example, you got one dude that has, their family owns this multi-million-dollar business, and they say, don't worry about the money, man, just buy what you need, and if you suck this year, you'll be back in the tournaments next year. So, okay, imagine that scenario where you have zero financial distraction. And then imagine the next dude that's a pro fishing that scraped everything that he's got. He maxed out his credit cards. He borrowed from people. He did everything he could to put himself in this super high pressure position of having to perform. And he knows that if he doesn't cash a check every single tournament, that he's going to be in trouble. And he knows that if he doesn't cash a bunch of checks and maybe even win a tournament, he's not going to be back next year. This is what I'm talking about as the financial elitism of professional bass fishing that has taken over the sport, and it sucks. It's not fair whatsoever, because you've got people out there that are unbelievable anglers and they love it more than anything else, and they simply are unable to do it because of this financial elitism that we've caused from, allowing guys to have $50,000 worth of cheater boxes on their boat, or spending $140,000 on a bass boat, $80,000 on a truck. I mean, this is the problem that we've created that is causing this financial elitism. I got one example that I've used a couple times. You probably not heard it because I haven't referred this in a couple years. I was fishing a Bassmaster Open down at Lake, what was that in Texas? God, what was that? Not Ray Roberts, but I can't remember the last. Anyway, one of those Bassmaster Opens down in Texas there. And anyway, it was the second day of practice, and I pulled my boat out of the water. Now, when I pulled my boat out of the water, there was another dude pulling out in front of me, and we sort of pulled up side by side up at the top of the ramp to get in there, to get our boat squared away and everything. This truck that had pulled up there, it was a brand new F-250 Ford diesel. It looked like it just come off the showroom floor. It had it had the winch on the front. It had a brush guard on it. It had aftermarket tires. It had aftermarket, exhaust on it. I mean, this freaking truck had to cost way over $100,000. I mean, it was unbelievable. Brand new Ranger 521, looked like it come off the showroom floor. Not even a speck of anything on the lower unit. It had power poles that had 6 units on it, 6 graphs. This rig, guys, had to cost probably, both the boat and the truck were way over $200,000. This kid jumps out of there, guys. He looked like he was a freshman in high school. I mean, he looked like he wasn't even shaven. Super, super young dude. Jumps out of the truck and gets out, and I'm like, God, how in the world does a freaking 18 or 20-year-old kid afford a $250,000 rig? And then I pulled out of the parking lot, and I went up, and as I was going out of the lot, for the tournament, there was like a campground there, And there was another dude in the parking lot there. He was probably, I don't know, in his late 30s or something. And he had like, it looked like a 1997 pickup truck. It wasn't even a crew cab. It had like the little, whatever, the small cab behind it. And he had this, it looked like probably it looked like a 1995 Skeeter, just a beat up boat. It had a 200 horsepower on it. He had like a little 9-inch 2D sonar unit up front and one on the console. He was in the tournament. So here you've got this one dude that has got this boat that's probably cost, I don't know, $5,000, and his truck probably was less than that. So he's probably got $10,000 in his entire rig. And you got this other dude that's got $250,000. This is what I'm talking about as the financial elitism that is occurring in the sport right now that nobody talks about. And until professional fishing levels that financial playing field, that is why you can't consider this a legitimate sport. And that's why it's not fair. That's why tournament organizations have perpetuated this by not putting on equipment limitations. This is a reality of pro fishing that nobody talks about. In a perfect pro fishing world, guys, money should not influence the outcome of the tournament. The ability, imagine you were a poor inner city kid that was so talented in football, that you were like this unbelievable running back, but you didn't have any money. And then you got this other kid that's sort of in the same position that comes from a very wealthy family. And in order to play football, you had to pay a $50,000 entry fee to play football, or you couldn't pay it. And the inner city kid that was freaking unbelievable never gets a shot because he can't afford $50,000. That's what we have in pro fishing. That's the difference between other sports and pro fishing. And it is perpetuated by the tournament organizations for not putting equipment limitations on the boat. I mean, in a perfect scenario, guys, let's do it right, man. Let's say, okay, the maximum length boat you can have is 17 feet long with a 80 horsepower motor on it, and you're allowed one 7-inch 2D sonar up front and one on the console. That's all you're allowed. You're allowed to have 5 rod and reels in the boat, creating a more level playing field that's more affordable to other people. Then let's see who the best angler is out there. So anyway, that's just a few of the things, guys. It's like, I could go on and on about it, but it's a tough way to make a living. It used to be if you don't have money in it. And one of the things that concerns me more than anything else, and I talk to a lot of guys out there, young kids that don't have money, that are frustrated by this, is this tournament fishing, professional tournament fishing, now is turning into the people that have the ability to afford to do it, to pay to play. And that delegitimizes the sport. When you remove talent in favor of money that we have here, you delegitimize the sport. And it keeps being perpetuated. It's like every year, we don't see these limitations going on equipment. We see the entry fees, remaining high. We see the payouts remaining low. That's why I'm talking about professional angling is in a really bad place right now. So anyway, guys, I could go on, but I don't want this video to last forever. I just wanted to draw that to your attention. Shoot me some comments, man. Let me know what you guys think about it, and we'll talk later.